Welcome. My name is Isabella Brusati and I'm the founder of Isabella Brusati Consulting. We focus on change management, specifically on the people and project aspects of change. When I deal with change management, one of the top frustrations of my clients is related to individual change. Individual change, basically, people say, managers say, well, you know what, I've done all my best. Basically, I have communicated with my employees, I have involved them in the change, but they're still dragging their feet. The problem is that individuals are emotional, so we do react to change in slightly different ways and at different speeds. And that's actually what makes change challenging, but also extremely interesting. Another issue that I've noticed is that lots of individuals, lots of companies do not focus on change at individual level. They just look at change at organizational level, very rarely at team level, and even more rarely at individual level. The fact is that initiative is going to are not buying in. So what I will be doing in this Hangout specifically, I will be talking about one of the tools that you can implement within your organization in order to facilitate change. This tool is, which is the behavioral approach, is actually quite good if you have to implement cultural change. You may go, gosh, he's going through theories, this is boring, etc. I need pragmatic. I must say that I do agree, in the sense that you need a pragmatic approach, but the theory behind the pragmatic approach is important. I'm not for, the theoretical models and, this may work, that may work. I'm actually for some good, solid theory that can help you applying it in a pragmatic way. So I'm going to talk about one of the models and one of the tools that you can actually use in order to facilitate change at individual level. I am going to broadcast a series of Hangouts over the next few weeks, so this is the first. I will be talking about the individual change, so change at the individual level, but we also have to take into consideration change at team level and an organizational level. If you just focus on one of these three, it's extremely unlikely that the change management initiative in your organization is going to be successful. So let's go down to the nitty-gritty. Behavioral approach. Basically, the behavioral approach is the approach that looks at how an individual's behavior is changed and doesn't look at things like, so doesn't pay attention to the processing, the relationship, and their involvement in goal settings. So it doesn't look fundamentally at what is more like the emotional part of change. This is also commonly known as the carrot and stick approach. You may go, oh my gosh, I mean, it's a little bit, awful, in the sense that the carrot and stick approach, in very straightforward terms, or reward and punishment, means that if you behave in a certain way, I'm going to reward you. If you don't behave in a certain way, I'm going to punish you. So let's pretend, I'm just going through a very simple example. Let's pretend that you are a company that works in a telecommunication sector. And you have a customer care, so telephone. And basically, you have noticed that lots of your clients are complaining because of the poor customer service. Basically, they are saying that your operators are rude, they put the phone down on them, they do not reply, they return calls after 2 or 3 days, and a lot of your customers have decided to quit, basically, your company and go with your competitors because you are not offering, basically, anything that is, particularly diverse or unique compared to your competitors. So the performance and the bottom line of your company is suffering. So what you want to do basically is to identify what is the reason why the situation is not doing particularly well. So basically, here we got a situation whereby you are at point A, so there are specific behaviors, and you want to go to point B. So basically, you have to identify the behaviors that impact the performance. So you have to determine what are the behaviors that at the moment, so at point A, status quo, are not working, and determine the behaviors, so basically point B, that are going to very likely improve the performance. You also have to determine what are the measures for these behaviors. So how are we going to determine whether a person has gone from behavior A to behavior B? Very simple way is the number of complaints that you are receiving on a daily basis. Let's pretend that at the moment you receive 100 complaints per person, and you want to go down to a maximum of 15. Now, we know that there will still be clients that will complain no matter what, even if you're offering a tip-top customer care and customer service. But of course, yeah, you will have to make assessments. There is a much bigger strategy to determine what is the measure, and in this case, the number of complaints that is considered acceptable. So basically, you decide that what you want now is something like response within 2 hours. So if someone is putting in a complaint, your customer care will have to go back within 2 hours. Things like you would have a sort of a script and a language, a jargon that your customer care representative will have to use with the clients, to be polite and to be basically much more inviting and professional in the way that they deal with your clients. And you can go through a list of reasonable behaviors that you want your people to adopt. So basically, you want them to go from A to B. Of course, you will have to carry out a functional analysis of this behavior. You will have to determine what is the strategy of intervention, and then you will have to evaluate the results. Now, people usually don't change their behavior just for the sake of it. This is basically we can call it as a cultural change. You say, oh my gosh, you're going a little bit into too much detail, but this is actually a very straightforward method that you can use if you're implementing a cultural change within your organization. There are 2 billion definition of culture. I keep things simple. Culture is how things are done around here. So at the moment, you are at point A, which is basically the status quo. And this is basically the future. So this is the desired point that we want to reach. So how things are done around here now is people are not going back to the clients, are rude, there is no attention to customer care, people can't be bothered, and so on. You want them to go to B. So one of the strategies to reinforce change, so basically changing their behavior, is via financial and non-financial strategies. Financial basically are things like increase in their salary, bonuses. So for example, if you reach your target, you will get a 10% salary bonus. Of course, you will have to determine the financial reward in line with your strategy and with the compensation and benefits department, so basically with HR. Some companies think that this is enough and that nothing else is needed. I pay you, you are going to do it. It's much more complex than that. True that we are not looking at the emotional reaction of people in this case, but to motivate someone, money is not necessarily enough. There are some industries that are just money driven, like financial services, where money is the main motivator. But still is not the only motivator. Here there are, the McGregor's theory. We are not going into that. But you can also implement non-financial measures. Non-financial measures are things like feedback. So, for example, positive praise of an individual. That can be the employee of the month, the employee of the week, or during a meeting, praising people that have reached a specific goal. Some people may also rely on social peer pressure. I mean, I am not particularly into name and shame. I don't think that it's a strategy that works particularly well. But again, there are some companies, especially those that are a little bit old style, that go along this line. I am the boss. I decide what you have to do. If you behave the way that I tell you, you get a reward, which is usually money and nothing else. And if you do not behave in the way that I want you to, I sack you. This is basically the typical way, for example, investment banks work. And in fact, we can see that there are extremely toxic environments on a normal basis, and that this kind of behavior doesn't drive performance. As we saw, basically, the fact that the whole entire sector has gone into complete meltdown. So, using only the financial strategy in itself may not be enough, and actually could lead at the end of the day to just people, I do it just because you pay me a little bit more. But when you reach a certain level of money, people just go, and now what? Is not enough. So you need to mix it up with non-financial. Here there is another mistake, because nowadays there are lots of companies that are relying on the theories related especially to millennials. So millennials basically are the young generation. And basically, there are some researches that show that millennials are not particularly driven by money. Of course, they do care about their salary, because we all have to live, but it's not money their main motivator. So lots of companies are coming up with the idea that, oh, great, I can save money, and I can offer them only non-financial reward. This, in most cases, is not going to work. Usually, the best mix is financial and non-financial, because giving someone a pat on the shoulder to actually require them to go from one behavior to another is usually not enough. You have to give them more. So lots of time, the reason why the carrot and the reward and performance approach does not work is because there is a mistake here. So are the reinforcement strategies. In some cases, there is no reinforcement strategy whatsoever, because the company is saying, I employ you, and you tell and you do as you are told. These are the extremely toxic environments where basically you just want to run, because the employee is not seen as a resource, as an asset, but just as a number that has to work as a machine. I remember I recently took part to a conversation on LinkedIn. It was a LinkedIn group, and it was one of the commentators that said, things along these lines of, I own the employees, they have to tell, they have to do as I tell them, etc. I am quite certain that his company is not doing particularly well. That's not the way to implement the behavioral approach. I mean, carrot and stick approach is a little bit, it sounds a little bit, I would say, harsh, because this approach can still be implemented in a very effective way only if you start from the right mindset, that your employees are a resource, not a lemon that you can squeeze. So, going back, you need basically, and some companies go in this way. So, I employ you, you owe me something as an employee, you do as you are told. So I don't have to give you anything to reinforce the new behavior, you just do it. If you do it, you are in. If you don't do it, you are out. So basically, I sack you. As I said, this is very typical in investment banks. I'm not saying that everyone is like that, but, And you have to basically reinforce and motivate people to go from here to here. If you don't give me anything, why should I do it? It can be pride in my job. Yeah, I'm working on a customer care, probably on national minimum wage, 12 hours a day, whatever. I mean, if you are forcing me to do something and you don't give me anything back, I can find a lot of other customer care. because you don't offer me anything that is different. So again, here, let's go to the root of the issue. We want to change the company culture. Let's start considering our employees as an asset and as people that are intelligent and react to change in a certain way. So one of the ways that this behavioral approach to reward and punishment can work, and I'm not saying that this is the solution, it's one of the possible solutions, is actually start involving the employees also at these stages. So in determining, for example, what are the behaviors that are impacting on the bottom line. There are a lot of researches that show that if someone is involved in the change process, so also behind the scenes, it's more likely that they will embrace the change and they will go from here to here. You will still need their reinforcement strategies, but again, you would have to work in synergies with the HR that has to be involved from the very beginning, not just at the end. You would have to work with the employees themselves to understand what are the rewards that they want, what is going to help them. Of course, there will always be someone that resists change and that they want to go here. So it's still possible that you will have to dismiss someone. But it's not, if you do this, I reward you. If you don't do this, I get rid of you. It's more like, I did everything that I could, and was reasonable to get you from here to here. If notwithstanding, I involve you, I basically implement financial and non-financial strategies. You don't want to go here. Well, probably this is not the right culture for you. This is not the right company for you, and there is not a good fit. In this case, basically getting the person out is going to be better for the individual and for the company. The individual can go somewhere else that is actually that is closer to his or her culture. So basically can go to company AB rather than yours. But starting from the outset, from saying that I am the boss and you do as you're told, we just create an environment where terror and toxicity are the main elements. And there is no real drive in changing the culture and changing a behavior. That's one of the reasons why change management initiatives fail. Not because change is difficult, but because the basis that are driving change in that organization are actually flawed. So this is just one of the methodologies that you can implement in order to change behavior. It's not the only one, and it can be still very effective. Of course, it's not the panacea. It depends on your company. You will still have to take into consideration the change at team level and at organizational level. So there are basically 1, 2, and 3. Usually companies consider only this. This one is who cares, people just fall along, they will just come on board, very unlikely. Sometimes there is a little bit of attention to this. You have to take into consideration all the 3 of them, and also for each of the aspects there are some approaches and some tools that you can implement. It's a sort of a mix and match. There is not a perfect formula. I mean, you have to take into consideration the requirement, the strategy of your organization, but knowing the tools that you have at your job available, you can use them in the best possible way. So I hope that this hangout has been helpful. Of course, this is just a very high-level explanation. And in the next hangout, I'm going to talk about another tool that is part of the individual change arsenal. And then, we'll go through the different hangouts to talk about also the team and the organizational level. But on one side, let's not take the reward and punishment approach literally. so carrot and stick, but at the same time, let's not think that it is necessarily this sort of autocratic and behavior or approach whereby you are in and you are out, you are the good one, you are the bad one. So the name and shame culture is usually not particularly effective unless you want to create a climate of terror and an environment that is extremely toxic, where your turnover is going to be ridiculously high, and basically you will have not only a dip in performance, very likely, but you will have to replace basically people, and the cost is very high, and also the reputation of your company. And people do talk, especially now, that the world became so little. And if you get the reputation of being a toxic company, well, even if you pay lots of money and give a lot of financial rewards, you will not be very appealing for a good amount of population. So I hope that this was helpful, and thank you so much for watching.